So let's listen keenly and learn together. Social protection system. Hold on.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. This is social protection presentation will attempt to answer the questions as enlisted.
My lord, I will your voice not here. Oh, sorry. This can be. You have access to the documents, sir. That's it. You have used.
So once again, good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. This is Social Protection Group presenting a response to the questions distributed all around your phones, tablets, and laptops. I will now give the microphone to my co-presenter.
Of climate change, or the impact of climate change on social protection, which is first column, where we are maintenance. Okay, in the first column, we are looking at the impact of climate change on social protection. I would say one of the impacts of it is the increase in vulnerability. We have increase in poverty, we have increase in food insecurity, and we have
since there's a light of touches.
okay. Now we have increase in crime rates. These are some of the impacts that climate change have on social protection. When we're talking about the increase in vulnerability, we're looking at the effect of climate change on the people. It increases vulnerability, it reduces the safety, it moves into when there are terrible climate change that has to do with either drought, has to do with either flood. We tend to experience, in addition to the explanation I'm adding, we tend to bring about people moving from one place to the other, migration, and those who will be affected mostly in this migration. We have to also look at the women, we have to also look at the children, we have to look at also the elderly. These are people that will be affected because the younger ones may have the tendency to leave and migrate quickly, leaving those who are vulnerable to be affected by such climate change. So that impact alone, we're talking about vulnerability, we're talking about the protection that they have from young people in the community will definitely reduce. They will be vulnerable. In such cases, we also have the poverty rate will definitely increase because when we're talking about people who are supposed to support and be the backbone of these families are nowhere to be found due to the impact of this terrible climate change. We allow them to have a lot of poverty, and it increases so much in the community. It also, while we're talking about poverty, is also linked to the food insecurity of that community because poverty goes hand in hand with food insecurity. And also, when there is food insecurity, you expect crime. Because when there is no food, people go to any length to ensure that they get food to eat. And in such cases, we expose crime into the community. So all these things that we have highlighted is due to the impact of climate change in affecting the social protection growth. So let me go to the next column. It says, what are the gender implication? What are the gender implication? It also involves gender-based violence that we have said. What recipient of gender-based violence, especially young, vulnerable girls. We have cases of rape. We have cases of when there is lack, when there is poverty, you experience a lack of peace in the home, attack on the less, I think the genders, especially we know we have such challenges. Our girl child experience a lot of gender-based violence, and also the young children are also vulnerable. Another thing is lack of inclusivity of gender during intervention programs. We also understand that there are times that government want to bring intervention into a community. And when interventions are coming, the ones that are stronger, that will be able to have access to it, they will struggle their way, they will manipulate their way to have that. We have cases where genders will be lured into forcing themselves to get some of these things that government are really off which with intervention without the, if there is proper inclusivity with gender, they should be able to have access to it. But in such cases, in many cases, in various communities, we used to have deficiency by our female gender in terms of accessing some of this intervention. Another thing is gender sensitivity, gender sensitive, this sensitive, yeah, gender sensitive climates. Not presenter to look into gender sensitive climate policies. There are some policies that government will bring into, and some of these policies might be relating to only the female genders and even the male. Sometimes we talk about gender, we are only referring to only the females. But there are some policies that will come that the males will want to even access into it to give them support. They might not be able to have access to it. And some of these policies are gender-based. In some communities, they can bring a policy and they'll say, this policy, this thing or this support is only for the females. And even the males that are in need of it may not be able to have access to it. So this also have impact on the gender. So let me go to the next column. The next is governance complexity. Governance complexity. Once that have to do with social protection. So in governance complexity challenges we have in governance, we have reduced economic opportunities. We have change of government administration. We have lack of political will. We have lack of public awareness and citizens' resistance to change. Then we have coordination challenges among stakeholders. We also have overdependence of international donors or international actors by government. These are some of the government complexities that we have. So I think I'll just quickly run into it and just add some flair to some of them. We have reduced economic opportunities. We're talking about changing government administration also. We are looking at sometimes government may start a project that has to do with social welfare, that has to do with social intervention. But if there is a change in government, another government that will come into play we don't want to continue from that. And before then, we have a lot of abandoned policies that is supposed to be continued. And it will reduce continuity. And that also will also affect the social protection of a state or a community. Then we also look at foreign dependence on foreign actors. Sometimes we have foreign actors, foreign donors, about them we say, we don't have something to give you. Want to wait on foreign donors or foreign actors that will come over. And whether government are depending on foreign actors. Look at what we were here earlier, someone's observation of the challenges that came with American policies that can also affect. So some of these policies that will, while government are waiting for them, and there are other policies from foreign donors, we discover that it will affect the social group that we're waiting on the support. So, however, these government complexities have actually been a major challenge on social groups. Let me quickly, because of time, let's look at engagements, what, who, and how. So if we have such cases, we have these complexities, we have the impact, we have the implications. Now, if we want to engage the social protection, what are we engaging, who are we engaging, and how are we engaging? So, what are we even supposed to engage? We are supposed to engage public awareness, we are supposed to, and advocacy. This is one of the things that we need to also in our engagement. Let's bring out public engagement, let's bring out public, let's do advocacy, let's bring out the public, let's do awareness, let the public know that we have social groups that are actually having a lot of challenges with the impact of the environment. So let the people know. We have individuals, instead of waiting for the foreign we have individuals who can begin when they are properly enlightened, when they are given that awareness, they may be able to come to the aid of vulnerable people that needs this social protection. So that is very important. And next we also look at disaster risk reduction. What are some of the things that we do to reduce at the community level the risks that the social protection group are facing? We have to create some to see that we reduce that risk. And another intervention is CSO. So we're looking at the ones we have talked about. Okay, we have talked about the advocacy, we have talked about disaster risk, we have talked about timely intervention in such cases where we have issues of social protection group needs timely intervention. We also look at impact of climate change adaptation. When we have those things, we also have to then let's go to the home. Who are we to? And number one, all relevant stakeholders. And that's where we have the MDS, the civil society organizations, the NGOs, the CEOs, the PWDs, private organizations, religious groups, traditional groups, youth groups, professional bodies, and research institutions. These are the. Then let's look at how we look at the advocacy, public awareness. And when we're looking at public awareness, we're talking about groups discussion. We focus on group discussions. We focus on town hall meetings. We focus on media awareness and sensitizations. These are some of the how we're going to make this. So then next is the channel of communication. If we're looking at the channel of communication, how do we communicate this? Which channel are we supposed to communicate so that it will reach the social, it will be an advantage to the social profession? Number one, we have the media, of which we know the print, electronic, the town crier. When we're talking about traditional, the previous case, we're looking at the town crier because we're talking about the print or electronic media. There are remote communities or remote villages where those things cannot be accessed. And most of the things we use are our traditional town criers, where we give them this information and they follow house to house, street to street, and give this information. So that's some of the channels of communication. Then the next is behavioral change milestone. Behavioral change milestone. Number one, we have the financing through conditional cash transfer. It will also create a change in the milestone. We also have adjustment in government policies. Government will have to come with other policies and look at the other policies that they have and see if it is really having an impact on the social protection. So in the absence of that, government will have to adjust policies so that the social protection will be included and also reviewed. Yeah. So the next thing is adjustment, migration, and displacement. One of the things that then we have feeding pattern of those affected. We have dependency on social protection supports. All these things behavioral change and milestone. So quickly, let me just round it up and say, how do we monitor, learn, and innovate? How do we monitor, learn, and innovate? Number one, we have designing a robust monitoring and evaluation system to track, access, and use climate-related data. Number two, we have stakeholders engagement. Number three, we have tools and technology learning. Number four, we have experience gathering and feedback. That's under learning. Then under innovations, we have proper reporting on findings and recommendations, strengthening existing climate-related platforms. Then creation of technology that reduces dependency on fossil fuel, increase on dependency of renewable energy. I think these are some of the things we were able to gather in our own group that has to do with social protection. Thank you very much. So, is there any question? Or we can just go on. That's that the next week we will continue.
Okay, I think for me it's a very good one. Coming from where they are working on, which is social protection, they were able to do most of what everybody will want to hear. I think there is also somewhere which I think is very, 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 because whenever I started listening to it, begin to also understand when it comes to climate change and social protection. In the villages where you have streams drying up and rivers shrinking, you discover that the gas sometimes usually skip schools. I don't know if you understand. I've noticed that they skip schools because they will be looking for what? For water. Then even the women also skip other activities because they must have to do what? To get water. So it's very, very. So you now see that that climate change has. So on the financing, for me, there's a very big opportunity on how can we engage. If the international donor donations are shrinking, we should be thinking of domestic resource mobilization. I think it's something we should be thinking about very often. So thank you so much. So which other group is on? Anybody have any question, comments? Then we'll move to the next group. Yeah.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Awad Ahmad Said, Mountain Graduation Officer at the Ministry of Social Investment. Yes. On the column of how, go direct to the column of how. Social protection. That column that's brought how. Yes. If no, you pass it. Yes, this column. So expand it. There is how advocacy, public awareness. There, there is an omission of media. In the last program, media awareness. There is A. It's being omitted. Yes. So you should make. Yes. There is A after media.
Thank you very much, and well done for the social protection group. You've done a wonderful job. My observation is about the relevant stakeholders to engage. Some of them here you indicated them in abbreviation form, which is also good that you highlight what exactly the stakeholders are. And one other key observation that I've noticed is about students. I have not seen those being captured. And also, there are a lot of other structures that we have at the community level. For example, this NSP and other people within the grassroots level, the riders and other people. Because if we're talking about community, then generally we don't actually need everyone around. We have to capture all of them so that we know that this document is talking about the context of Kaduna and the reality of exactly where we're engaging. There are other structures from all of the people here. Then additionally, around the channel of communication too, so you indicated media, electronic, town criers. I also think that we can also expand that house-to-house engagement as things that we can consider. Real life events, even though I've seen you put in town criers. Also like family gatherings, we're talking about climate, and we're also talking about a framework that is also going to be usable for everyone of us to consider taking. So all of those things, engagement opportunities that we might think out of the box and include them there, that we can leverage on them. Classrooms, there are places that we can also, they are channels of communication. And then regarding this health financing, my also observation is I don't know if we could add something related to community-based savings, where, for example, if we're having 3,000 people in the community, they could donate or contribute 1,000 for either any issue that has to do with them, with the climate within the community. Since we're talking about yes, shock responsiveness, they can organize a town hall, or do something to help someone that has been affected by the climate, or to address a particular issue. Because in this aspect, we're talking about sustainability, what can be done. So also, if we didn't let the community know their responsibilities in terms of this, then how could they know that community-based savings and all these opportunities are available? We don't wait for partners or other organizations. And I hope that the other groups could have such kind of observations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Can we have another What kind of observation, right?
Pass the mic to her.
I cannot agree for putting this together, but I do want to make a suggestion. In terms of the impact, if I would like to suggest that since looking at what the social protection entails, what it is all about, I want to look at issues of inequality and distribution in terms of the impact, then coming to over dependency on the impact, I can't say the exclusion. You mentioned increased vulnerability, poverty, there's food insecurity, and there's crime rate. So that's why I mentioned that because it speaks more and better to social protection. Then in terms of the last part that has to do under governance complexity. I think there's a typo error over dependence of international actors. So maybe I think our dependency on them for support is pretty much another um, sorry, I'm trying to look at where all this is written. So in terms of this column that looks at behavioral change and milestone for the social protection, I would like to suggest that if we can look at, yes, we have captured a number, can we look at how we can promote adaptation measures within the social protection system, which is very important, because in areas where we cannot mitigate, I think we have more capacity for adaptation than mitigation. So it's always adaptation versus mitigation, and our strength lies in terms of adaptation. Then we need to also look at how can we strengthen local networks that support this climate change, social protection initiatives that we have. I mean, if we're speaking about social protection, speaks directly to grassroots. So how do we strengthen local networks to be able to, to be able to have that behavioral change and milestone achieved. Then lastly, there's need also for support for climate resilient livelihoods. So it's not just for us to bring in social livelihood support again, which is one of the components of the social protection, but let's target specific around climate resilience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope the social protection, you have noted all the observations and you are going to update, right? Okay, good. So, any other observation? We can proceed to another. Which other group? Right, right? Where is the head?
Wash.
Yes, I know.
Connection, right?
Presentation on health. The impact. Well, the first one is heat-related diseases. Example, heat stroke and dehydration. That's not all. There is more to that, etc. And then the second impact is vector-related diseases, e.g., malaria, typhoid, cholera, and much more. Then the third one is malnutrition as a result of erosion, ground pollution of farm produce, erosion, and the rest of them. Are we together?
Well, with you.
Okay, then under gender implication, heat stroke and dehydration increases the risk in pregnant women, which as well increase risk of maternal and maternal complications, urinary tract infections, poor breastfeeding, menopausal complications, and also
Because the impact, you will discover that the same impact will occur in social protection will definitely occur in health because they are very related, right? And the same thing will also occur in education, social protection, education, health, and the rest of them. So, because one problem with climate change governance, not just only Nigeria, but in a lot of the global south, is issue of policy coherence. So, and because of the policy coherence challenge, you now discover that if coordination is poor, who have to respond becomes a problem. So if we say there is an issue now, and then you are now waiting for maybe one department in the health ministry to respond, meanwhile, they didn't have the capacity. But they will always tell you it's our problem, don't come in, it's our problem, right? So I think it's also something that I'm just trying to think how everybody will now present. Then all of us can now come up with the ideas of how to do on each of them. We see the cross-cutting issues, right? We arrange the cross-cutting issues, and then we'll now see how to also fashion out cross-cutting solutions, right? Suggested solutions at community level. Now, sustainability is very, very key. And the only way to achieve sustainability, I'm very happy that the Council Assembly is also here, is to begin to think on how to achieve coherence, on how to build partnership of the ministries, the departments, and the agencies, and not necessarily having a siloed operation where you have Ministry of Health working one side, Social Protection working one side, Ministry of Water Resources working the other side. And then when it comes to let's share data, nobody wants to share data. And that is why up to tomorrow, the data for evaluating, is it SDGs or is it climate change, coming out of most of the African countries, including Nigeria, is actually questioned. Most of the data we generate from these countries are very questioned. So the go we just have the data.
The changes in curriculum. Then we have economic impact. Then the gender implication, vulnerability issues, that's so women faces economic dependency, disappropriation effect. Then we have limited access to resources and land rights. We have adaptation and resilience. Then we have health implication, productive health issues, heat-related issues, waterborne diseases, illnesses, access to health services. Then we have under government, we have policy and framework, policies and framework in bracket, policy integration, policy coherence. We have legislative and institutional frameworks. We have multi-level governance, local government, subnational, national, and international. We have international treaties and framework, funding, adaptation, versus litigation. We have as advocates for, we have the legislatures, government, communities, local government, that's local NGOs, INGOs, private sectors, businesses, religious leaders. Then what? Advocacy, sensitization, consultation.
should also just find a way to bring in the others, whichever. No, I know that's not why. I know why I'm coming with that out of school children. It's actually a policy for us now, our federal government. And if we try to see how we can, try to see how we can, whatever way we can do it, to bring in the art of scripture and mention it. Vulnerability is very strong and it's very broad. A lot of things will come under it. Even on the social protection, a lot of things when we talk about vulnerability, but at the same time, when we try to bring in the art of scripture, because the document we are trying to produce is not going to be, so big. It's going to be little so that everybody can have access and look at it. But I also think there are some key issues that is now policy focus of the government, both at the federal government at the subnational level, even at the community level. You understand that we really need to, just mention it that people will face the person and say, okay, let's see what happens here. Just the same way climate change is getting traction and many broader picture of environmental issues on one side. Yes. So that is something. So that is something. So I am not comfortable. I'm not comfortable with the funding sources. Okay, funding sources.
I thought we agreed all observations should be reserved till after all.
Don't worry. We might forget a lot of things.
Let us write it down.
Let's write it down. Then we can do the rest. The funding sources are limited. Only mention one. More funding. Yes. So, have you people noted? They say more funding. You should tell us about more funding opportunities.
Yeah.
So,
Go on, have fun.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephen Wyan. I'm presenting on behalf of Agri Group. The reason why we're looking at the impact, then we consider weather pattern after both crops and livestock production and the entire agricultural value chain negatively affect the entire agricultural value chain negatively and thereby increase pest and disease outbreak. So when you look at the weather pattern, what we see today, it affects the whole agricultural value chain, not just the farmers alone, not just the livestock, it also affects the storage, it also affects transportation. So the entire agricultural value chain is being affected by this weather pattern. Then we look at the gender implication. We look at gender implication, which is the climate change lead to food insecurity, which impact on nutritional status of household, especially women and children. Low productivity, which lead to low income level, which lead to apathy towards farming, because most of our communities now, they don't farm because of this climate change, which also lead to family friction in the family structure. When you experience low income, sometimes they may tend to, have issues with their wife because they don't earn a lot. And when you're coming back home every day, having challenges within the children and their wife as a result of low income, that affects our family as well. Then we look at the water scarcity, which brings about increase in workload of women and children to search for water. Some of them travel as far as 2 to 3, 4 kilometers in search of water. So the livestock and other, okay, gender education. And then looking at the governance complexity, we look at climate change makes planning and execution of policies and programs very difficult. Because when you, like what we're experiencing now, for instance, people that have livestock like agri chickens, what they were experiencing, in fact, they think we are already in the heat period, but you find out that in the last 2, 3 days, the weather changed, which might also affect those farmers, those ones that have birds. So those are the things that also affect them, bringing about loads of revenue and hiking food prices. Because of this low production, the government don't also generate much revenue in our usual market. For instance, maybe Lere, Samunaka, that they produce high meat. You now see that there's low production in that area, which also affect government in generating revenue. Then critical sector, diverse for climate mitigation. Sometimes when you have issues of flooding or anything that has to do with climate change, we have budget, the government budget, which government can also divert such funds that we meant to support critical sector to mitigate some of those climate effects that we're having. So it affects government policies and other things. Then adaptation of lack of climate change policies. So those are the things we have around governance of that. Then the engagement, what, who, and how. The what is create a framework to enable both state and non-state actors in the agricultural sector to adopt and sustain climate smart agricultural practices. We've been singing around climate smart agriculture, but how well have we institutionalized this laudable initiative? Who and who know about smart agriculture? So what can we do in that field? That then we have people, policymakers, farmers group, traditional and religious leaders, security, media, and markets group. Those are the people we need to actually engage them in that. Then the how, we're looking at to launch awareness campaign, focus group discussions, religious sermon, advocacy visit to relevant stakeholders to ensure they have they take these issues up. Then channel of communication. We suggest that we should leverage on the existing structures, such as the agri extension workers, the agri cohort. We have agri cohort here. We have agri extension service, but the question is, do we have them enough, or can we leverage on their structures? We can do better. Then the media channels, community development champions. We have CDC that in the old 255 words, we can leverage on their structure to engage farmers directly. Then farmers cooperative union. All farmers, I think they have union that we can engage and send message across to them appropriately. Then last but not least, okay, the behavioral change milestone. we look at increased adoption in climate smart agriculture practices, increased political will to adopt and implement climate smart agricultural policies and programs. We want to see how the political will, because for the past how many years, if not in the recent time, the agri sector has not been properly funded. But thank God in the last year, we've seen a drastic change in funding and around agriculture. So we want to see that political debate sustained around agriculture sector. Then publicity and advocacy, increased community-based decision making around climate. So those are the behavioral changes we want to see around both state and non-state actors. Next one. Then how do we monitor, learn, and innovate? Then we suggest that we should develop monitoring and evaluation tool to be used by all stakeholders that we just mentioned, both state and non-state actors. Then the learning aspect, we suggest that we can learn by knowledge exchange between communities on climate mitigation. We can maybe the neighboring community can just share their learning experience to, okay, what works for you, how can we bring this to our community like that? Not we get funding or something. Then we talk about visit and periodic review between across both state and non-state actors. Then in innovation, we talked about study practices from other countries and adopt into our own local situation, aligning our cultural practice to climate smart agriculture. That's what we have for now.
Some people are playing home and away.
Question, or I should take a call. Yeah, sir, there's something we put there, but I didn't see. We talk about, yes, we talk about the law because we have mentioned there. We also suggest that the law, the climate, and we have climate. Yes, then.
The last thing there.
Okay. Change law, yes. So, and we thank God we have our members, State House of Assembly are here. So, we also want to see that stated in Kaduna so that our peculiar. Thank you very much, guys.
Sorry to bore you with my unclean voice. So, I was actually expecting so much as well from the agricultural sector, that one of the sectors that is likely to is the agricultural sector. So, in terms of the impact, I was expecting to see more to look at more issues of how issues of biodiversity loss, because when we use this, particularly the forest resources, we're looking at there are some there are some animals, there are some insects that are, or birds that are for pollination purpose. And so I'm happy that you mentioned the crop and the livestock production, but I'm also was expecting to see issues of biodiversity. Also, the social implications as well, forced migration. We know that is what basically contributes a lot to migration and then insecurity, problem for the agrarians. Go to Lagos or some states, you see our northern brothers there. They only go back when it's raining season. But now with the electric or uncertainty in the annual rainfall, they don't even go back anymore. They are looking for another source of income. So I think it's a very strong impact in the sector. Then you also you're looking at the issues of also issues of soil degradation is very important because the bedrock of agriculture is the soil itself. So you can look at that. And then also standable water. I'm expecting to see water. But there's a corner where you mentioned water scarcity, but you didn't mention it. I'm expecting that when we look at the gender implications of governance complexities, it should translate from the impact and bringing it out like that. So that's use the weather, whatever, and sorry, if you can still, sorry, leave it in the agreement. Leave it in the agreement. Leave it in the agreement.
Go up. You think about that.
So and I'm also expecting. So you mentioned weather pattern. No, we are not. We don't know if it is an extreme weather pattern or inconsistency in this weather pattern. So weather patterns is not strong in weather patterns does not mean anything. So and there are two. We can have extreme. Yeah, we can have negatively or positively. We have high amount of rainfall, or we have little amounts of rainfall. All have their own implications of farming activities. So you should look at that on gender implications. We should look at. I was expecting to see you mention smallholder farmers. They are a very strong entity that need to be strengthened and worked with. And then if social protection will give an intervention, I think one of the focus should be on smallholder farmers. So I'm expecting to see smallholder farmers. And then also issues of, in terms of how strong works around nutrition as well. So in gender implications, I was expecting to see issues around decision making, health, nutrition, economic conditions like that. Then I also was expecting to see issues of intersectionality, where we have multiple identities. You understand, where we have race, we have different ethnics, and how this impacts them differently. You said policy frameworks, fully to measure it, but I think that's fine. Then governance complexity. I think we can look at climate change adaptations to this climate change impact, and then also resilient building other climate change adaptation. Then in terms of governance complexity, those are issues that either hammer or resolve any complexity around any governance. Then technological advancement. We're having people saying they are not interested in GMOs. We're having some people say it is healthy. We're having some people look at hybrid farming and all sorts of improved agricultural strategies. We're having climate smart agriculture that I didn't even hear you mention it. I think I was expecting to see it in the milestones because we're talking about climate change. We can't. So maybe it's a little bit, I apologize for that. So I think I should look at that because it can affect governance complexity. So in terms of technology as advancement, is it acceptable? Some have observations and economic policies as well. Market access to market for these farmers in terms of agriculture and their availability. And then uncertainties for farmers to understand in terms of the market. Then of course regulatory frameworks as well that speak to the agricultural sector. Thank you.
Some observation, please. Can I suggest, but don't talk about it. Can I suggest that all that she has mentioned, that because she has said a lot, they are not sure they've captured. Can you, all the can you pass it to all the groups as you're doing it there, because the links will get back. You're doing
she should just be transported to.
Okay. Yes. Okay, I said a lot that we are not even capturing. It's very important. You are almost talking like
will say something. Let me just clarify something. It's a lot. They have to really look at what they did before so that they can also update. But also remember that what we are doing here is in context of landscape, right? So and that is why so those things she said is very important that we take it up and look at it, very well critically. We don't know in which ones can we really bring into the partner? Which ones can we not bring into that? So because if we don't like GMO, for instance, if we want to do advocacy about GMO in the communities, we really need to talk to people, we need to need the communities to understand. No, I'm just trying to explain. I'm not saying it's a point there. So there are a lot of things, even in terms of technology. I know that sometimes they go Jonathan, they told them they are bringing telephone so that farmers can use to reporting their work. Right? So but I need to change your telephone. So I also had another discussion about weather stuff. When the agric was starting, my sister was right. Because when people ask this question, what is climate change? But that's the first question. What is climate change? Is it just change in weather? It is not. So the change in weather must have to be for a very long period of time. It's not just if rain fell today and then tomorrow it fall, it's not climate change. And that is why I keep on trying, like I had one discussion with some farmers in FCT. Instead of them talking to them about whether they haven't seen it, you talk to them about the impacts of what climate change on their agricultural practices. They will understand it much better than trying to explain to them it is change in weather. But those are just side comments. Please give a letter later on. We will see how we connect it. Right?
On that last one, innovation. You mentioned we keep mentioning going to other countries, which is international. When you talk about and then funding is not adequate. So we have to look in for local source. Even within Kaduna, there are some communities that so is doing well for them. So we can exchange within the local communities. Because study practice from other countries and adopt it to our local situation. But what I'm saying, not other countries. Yes, other countries should take, but we should also add local content.
That's what we say. Practice to climate smart fabric.
Where's
That's the last one.
align? Yeah, indigenous, exactly. Indigenous method.
Okay.
Environment, please. Can we clap? Can we clap for agri?
We will hold food. We will have it. We will not get your lunch.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm Lydia Sade, presenting for environment. And the first impact we looked at erratic weather pattern. And we can all attest to it in Kaduna State that our weather pattern has really been very erratic. You can't really tell when the time starts and when it ends anymore. We also have pollution, loss of biodiversity, proliferation of microorganisms. We have outbreak of some crop diseases now because of this. And then we have droughts and heat waves. This were the impact we outlined. Gender implication is gender-based violence, family affect family cohesion, because while the woman is expecting feedback from whatever have been farmed and then it is not coming community for a period of 5 years, if you migrated into that community
as a woman, we experience miscarriage because of the level of pollution that is in that community. And you can see that women's health are at risk within this community. Loss of soil fertility decline, men and women are affected, integrated water management. When there are a lot of these impacts, water becomes a scarce commodity and the women are affected. Loss of source of livelihood for men and women, loss of aquatic life, and then drought. So these are the gender implications. Governance complexity, low stakeholder engagement during policy formulation. When policies are being formed, the stakeholders are not really key stakeholders. Some key stakeholders are not really carried along, and then we have a lot of gaps and inadequate policies, not capturing quite a lot of issues within our local context. Inadequate participation of local government LGAs in environmental decision. Then absence of interagency collaboration and stakeholder engagement. You have agency fighting over some management. You have an agency saying we're in charge of sanitation. Another agency saying it's our mandate to carry out sanitation and all of that. So thereby leading to a lot of overlapping in our implementation in sanitation and environmental issues. Engagement, what, who, and how. We need to engage the policies and action plan. We should also engage enforcement, funding, awareness, using localized language. Who? We have the legislatures, community, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Human Services and Social Development, Ministry of Public Works, and infrastructure, focusing on Department of Water Resources actually, and then KEPA, CATSEMA, and the Office of the SA to the State Governor of Climate Change, also private sector. How are we going to do this? We're going to engage through memos and advocacy briefing. Channels of communication. We have town halls, social media, radio, television, and town announcers actually. Town criers, town announcers are all the same. Behavioral change milestone, political will, improve waste management value chain within our communities, adaptation of alternative energy source. We need to have an alternative energy source for local women so that we can reduce the tree cutting that we're experiencing in our state. And how do we monitor, learn, and innovate? We develop monitoring and evaluation framework for this, and then periodic stakeholder engagement, developing feedback mechanism. You can see we actually lost our original document and still being worked on, but this is what we can control to present.
Observation, I think this is the last one, right? Yes. Let's clap for ourselves. Observations.
Mine is not a general observation that at the end of the validation, we come up with a document that is easily comprehensible by the people and the community. We shouldn't be looking at ourselves here. Or there are people that might not even understand some of this terminology. We should do the document that everybody can understand and also play his own part in the conversation.
Thank you so much. Now, when we say channel of communication, we'll be talking about Sulutamata, right? Okay.
No, general.
No, it's general. No, but this one, Oga said general. My own Sulutamata is general because the matters are in agriculture, they are in everywhere, right? And so for this one, anybody has observation on this one?
impact.
This has made a very heavy and wonderful presentation. But I want to ask the House who the facilitators.
Yes.
Okay, to make a combination of environment and agriculture because they are twin brothers. Most of the points gathered and expressed, or rather presented by the last group, are supposed to be captured by the other. I think they don't do everything quite right. Even if, in fact, they dealt on only one point, but this book has made it wonderful. It did. And
No noise for that. No, don't provide so no one will have one for that.
should be merged together because they are two brothers. One will be overlapping the other. Why that group made a very wonderful presentation because they also have so
So from all the presentations we made, I come to agree on behalf of myself that it's all professors in the room. Well done for the good job done. So for the general observation, one is that we have limited the impact to, we're not looking at mental health impact. For example, depression can be caused as a result of lost crop when the farmer had flooding, like for example at the community level and others. Then also we need to speak to these people with the language they understand. For example, if we're talking about vector-borne disease, I myself might not be able to break down what exactly it means. But if we are telling these people while looking at this document, for example, those job loss, cholera, all this kind of English that they can understand, and breaking down all the impacts from the health, we're also looking at it from the mental aspect, depression and others. Then also for the channels of communication, I also realized that we're looking to radio and others. How much we're looking at maybe let's say tea, sports, other community gatherings, really life events. Let's talk about, for example, now we're talking about the content of what's working at us. We know that we have train stations where people come together to travel to Abuja. Can we leverage on such kind of gatherings to talk to people? We have other engagements and activities happening. Can we say that we're also talking about visuals, drama, storytelling, clubs, all these places, tea spots and others? These are things that we should also try and bring on board here. So even annual festival, October and other places that we can leverage to share this information. Then for learning and innovation, I also realized that we're not talking about success stories of what we have done, impact about how we are also going to adapt ourselves.
I just wanted to mention that I just that we don't talk about Katrina in any of the places. Katrina. Anyway, Katrina, the Kaduna State Resident Identity Management Agency, is an agency that was created to identify the residents of Kaduna State. So if you're talking about environment, you're talking about health, it helps to narrow down that area that are affected. It is based on environment. You're talking about Kaura local government. What are Kaura local government? Kaduna can help you. Now down to the identity of down to children, the elderly, down to men, women, everyone around there. So also begin to from the tools that we have in Kaduna State that are created to help create systems.
Thank you so much. Just like my sister rightly pointed out, we are all professors here, except me. I'm still learning. So